Sorry. Hello, my Aloha tribe, and welcome to the Aloha Perspective, where you get a little bit of something and a whole lot of everything. Happy Monday. It is Martin Luther King Day here in the United States, and I guess adjoining countries. So, anyways, sorry, I don't normally do holiday shows, but kind of like with the Veterans Day, I just feel this is necessary. So, I don't know why I hit live. I wasn't ready yet. Whoop. As you can tell, Lord have mercy. Ay, ay, ay. This is good. You know, I'm telling you. I'm telling you. This is going to be a morning. This is going to be a morning. And that's okay, because I am prepared. I am prepared. Good morning, Eileen. Okay, she knows why I'm giggling. But anyways, yeah, so I actually had my notes here, number one, number two, what I wanted to read before and after, but I think I'm going to start with the last thing I was going to read, because I want to preface this with, by reading this speech, I mean no disrespect at all. I just think it's something that needs to be heard again. I think it's something that needs to be read again. What is happening? Stop. Good Lord have mercy. This, I don't know if anyone was on when the phone fell off there it goes again. Okay, look, sorry. I do not know what's happening. I feel like a million different bad things are poking at me right now, just saying, don't read it, because, we don't want people to catch on it, whatever. But anyways, I want to preface it with this. The only thing Dr. King and I have in common is that we're both Capricorns born in January. All right? Good morning, Muddy. We're both Capricorns born in January. That is it. I could only aspire to be as brave as he had to be to have such an impact, even now, in such a short lifespan. So, before I start this, I'm going to preface this with a little bit of what I'm going to read. I'm sure you've already guessed. I'm reading the I Have a Dream speech. On August 28, 1963, on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. gave a memorable speech that lives on today. The March on Washington was for jobs and freedom. Celebrities attended, with thousands more lining the mall to listen while their presence protested, the wrongs of a nation still seemingly grappling with its identity. And I truly believe that we are still grappling with our identity, especially now, right? Because there is so much head shaking stuff happening. Okay, I'm sorry. I do not know what's happening here, but all right. Hold on one second. I'm just going to close my eyes for a second. All right, sorry. Just had to get a little bit of protection there. So anyways, all right, let's, my chair went out from underneath me this morning, and I thought, well, maybe that was just my dumb self, but I didn't even reach that far. It was just kind of like, okay, maybe, I don't know. But right now, I just feel like something is doing this. Poke, 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 poke. So, everybody breathe in. Exhale, no huffs. Older sibling, I see you on there. Good morning. But yeah, also, the reason this speech, I think, became a little more poignant too is that this March on Washington was also in support of a bill that President Kennedy had initiated, I guess. So they were asked to keep the rhetoric to, something civil. Okay, and but I mean, this is one of the biggest peaceful protests in a way that well, thank you, older sibling. Yeah, I put effort in today. So anyways, yeah, this is one of the biggest silent protests, or just by being there, people were protesting the wrongs. And so this is why I write things down, because if I don't, I ramble. So let's get rolling. All right, I need to keep this near because this is 4 pages. So let's get rolling. Sorry, I have to channel my inner whatever. So 50 years ago, a great American in whose symbolic shadow we stand today. Oh, sorry, I did mention they were at the Lincoln Memorial, so just for reference. All right, so let's start again. 50 years ago, a great American in whose symbolic shadow we stand today signed the Emancipation Proclamation. This momentous decree came as a great beacon light of hope to millions of Negro slaves who had been seared in the flames of withering injustice. It came as a joyous break to end the long night of their captivity. But 100 years later, the Negro is still not free. 100 years later, the life of the Negro is still sadly crippled by the manacles of segregation and the chains of discrimination. 100 years later, the Negro lives on a lonely island of poverty in the midst of a vast ocean of material prosperity. 100 years later, the Negro is still languished in the corners of American society and finds himself in exile in his own land. And so we've come here today to dramatize a shameful condition. In a sense, we've come to our nation's capital to cash a check. When the architects of our republic wrote the magnificent words of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, they were signing a promissory note to which every American was to fall heir. This note was a promise that all men, yes, black men as well as white men, would be guaranteed the unalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It is obvious today that America has defaulted on this promissory note insofar as her citizens of color are concerned. Instead of honoring this sacred obligation, America has given the Negro people a bad check, a check which has come back marked insufficient funds. But we refuse to believe that the Bank of Injustice is bankrupt. We refuse to believe that there are insufficient funds in the great vaults of opportunity of this nation. And so we've come to cash this check, a check that will give us upon demand the riches of freedom and the security of justice. The security of justice. We have also come to this hallowed spot to remind America of the fierce urgency of now. This is no time to engage in the luxury of cooling off or to take the tranquilizing drug of gradualism. Now is the time to make real the promises of democracy. Now is the time to rise from the dark and desolate valley of segregation to the sunlit path of racial justice. Now is the time to lift our nation from the quicksands of racial injustice to the solid rock of brotherhood. Now is the time to make justice a reality for all of God's children. It would be fatal for the nation to overlook the urgency of this moment. This sweltering summer of the Negro's legitimate discontent will not pass until there is an invigorating autumn of freedom and equality. 1963 is not an end, but a beginning. Those who hope that the Negro needed to blow off steam and will now be content will have a rude awakening if the nation returns to business as usual. There will be neither rest nor tranquility in America until the Negro is granted his citizenship rights. The whirlwinds of revolt will continue to shake the foundations of our nation until the bright day of justice emerges. But there is something that I must say to my people who stand on the warm threshold which leads into the palace of justice. In the process of gaining our rightful place, we must not be guilty of wrongful deeds. Let us not seek to satisfy our thirst for freedom by drinking from the cup of bitterness and hatred. We must forever conduct our struggle on the high plane of dignity and discipline. We must not allow our creative protest to degenerate into physical violence. Again and again, we must rise to the majestic heights of meeting physical force with soul force. The marvelous new militancy which has engulfed the Negro community must not lead us to a distrust of all white people, for many of our white brothers, as evidenced by their presence here today, have come to realize that their destiny is tied up with our destiny. And they have come to realize that their freedom is inextricably bound to our freedom. We cannot walk alone, and as we walk, we must make the pledge that we shall always march ahead. We cannot turn back. There are those who are asking the devotees of civil rights, when will you be satisfied? We can never be satisfied as long as the Negro is the victim of the unspeakable horrors of police brutality. We can never be satisfied as long as our bodies, heavy with the fatigue of travel, cannot gain lodging in the motels of the highways and the hotels of the cities. We cannot be satisfied as long as the Negro's basic mobility is from a smaller ghetto to a larger one. We can never be satisfied as long as our children are stripped of their selfhood and robbed of their dignity by signs stating "for whites only." We cannot be satisfied as long as a Negro in Mississippi cannot vote and a Negro in New York believes he has nothing for which to vote. No, we are not satisfied, and we will not be satisfied until justice rolls down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream. I am not unmindful that some of you have come here out of great trials and tribulations. Some of you have come fresh from narrow jail cells. Some of you have come from areas where your quest for freedom left you battered by the storms of persecution and staggered by the winds of police brutality. You have been the veterans of creative suffering. Continue to work with the faith that unearned suffering is redemptive. Go back to Mississippi, go back to Alabama, go back to South Carolina, go back to Georgia, go back to Louisiana, go back to the slums and ghettos of our northern cities, knowing that somehow this situation can and will be changed. Let us not wallow in the valley of despair. I say to you today, my friends. So even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that one day even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day down in Alabama with its vicious racists, with its governor having his lips dripping with the words of interposition and nullification, one day right down in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with the little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day every valley shall be exalted, every hill and mountain shall be made low. The rough places will be made plain, and the crooked places will be made straight. And the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together. This is our hope. This is the faith that I go back to the South with. With this faith, we will be able to hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope. With this faith, we will be able to transform the jangling discords of our nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. With this faith, we will be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing that we will be free one day. This will be the day when all of God's children will be able to sing with new meaning. My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's pride. From every mountainside, let freedom ring. And if America is to be a great nation, this must become true. And so let freedom ring from the prodigious hilltops of New Hampshire. Let freedom ring from the mighty mountains of New York. Let freedom ring from the heightening Alleghenies of Pennsylvania. Let freedom ring from the snow-capped Rockies of Colorado. Let freedom ring from the curvaceous slopes of California. But not only that, let freedom ring from Stone Mountain of Georgia. Let freedom ring from Lookout Mountain of Tennessee. Let freedom ring from every hill and molehill of Mississippi, from every mountainside. Let freedom ring. And when this happens, and when we allow freedom to ring, when we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual, free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we are free at last. I'll just let that sink in for a little bit. So I'm going to read you what I wrote, and I hope the words did not fall on deaf ears. But what Dr. King spoke about in 1963 still lives and breathes today. Change the Negroes to people of color or immigrants, or even our gay communities and the other marginalized. Change the police to ICE. And why? because we got lazy, we got comfortable, and in our comfort, we stopped looking past our own lives and figured it'll take care of itself or someone else will speak up. And now here we are. Like I said, the only thing Dr. King and I have in common is being born in the same month. Thank you, Sammy. Thank you, Sammy. Thank you, older sibling. Honestly, I'm very filled with emotion right now, and I'm trying not to cry because I did my makeup today. But we only hear bits and pieces of that speech now. You know, and at least, you know, maybe outside of the African American community. Because, you know, for them, this speech is the promissory note. Dr. King would only live for another 5 years. Only another 5 years. Older sibling was telling me she was watching a documentary with me that Rachel Maddow did. And I mean, I didn't know that he had been stabbed. And she's all, can you imagine wondering, you know, what it must be like every time you walk outside? And I'm thinking, dude, it must be difficult every morning he wakes up and walks out his front door. And that proved it the day he died. All he did was walk out. And bam, someone took him out. But why? Why are we trying to protect someone's livelihood so hard back in those days? So in case you haven't put it together, a score is 20 years. All right. So like he made the score reference because he said he was, he wanted it to feel like the Gettysburg Address, because this is truly a man who you can see clearly admired Abraham Lincoln, who fought for so much, only for a lot of it to just be kind of undone in the South. And if I remember correctly, Stone Mountain and Lookout Mountain, I believe, are Confederate landmarks, I think. And I think that's why he was very specific to mention those things. Eileen says, wow, I still remember how that speech made me feel the first time I heard it as a little girl, and it truly saddens my heart knowing where our country is right now. Exactly. 63 years later, almost, well, 62 and a half years later, from the day he made that speech, which was the 100th anniversary of the signing of the Emancipation Proclamation, we are no farther than we were before. And that's because we've gone backwards. We made progress, not enough progress. Sammy says, every time I read that speech, she cries every time I read that speech. So I feel like, yeah, it's once you finish it and you let it sink in, it's very overwhelming. And I think it's very overwhelming because we see what's happening around us. We see people's neighbors being taken from their homes, from their jobs. Last week, a young man was arrested from his job, and he tried to prove to them that he was an American citizen. He had his passport in his pocket. And they didn't believe him until finally, I guess someone had the bright idea to look at it, and then they dropped him off, you know, not even near his work. This was in Minnesota. This speech should be something that's archived in our history. Something that said, look what Dr. King said. Look what he said to help us progress. But the fact that I am reading this speech on Martin Luther King Jr. Day, honoring his birthday, which was last week, but honoring him, the day that honors him. The fact that I'm reading this speech and so many people will be able to relate it to what is happening now says a lot about how far we have not come. How far we've not come. So Sammy says, I just read Dick Van Dyke's book and he appeared at one of the events that Dr. King spoke at. The guests were there with Dr. King were warned before the event that they had death threats to MLK. Oh, that day. And they were given the option to opt out of appearing at the event. No one did. They all went on stage with him. I know. It's very overwhelming emotionally. And it's very overwhelming emotionally because who are we? You know, back in 1963, we were heading in, we were 13 years away from our bicentennial. You know, we were roughly 80 years out from the Statue of Liberty being dedicated. And yet, here we are. Still struggling with our identity. You know, it's like I said, I think I mentioned this last week when I was in one of my shows. When I was younger and even as I got older, you know, because I love history and I see the growing pains that a lot of countries that are kind of set now have gone through, like England with all its different wars, you know, and the monarchy, and a lot of it centering around the monarchy, or the just kind of the claiming of the land, and you know, the little things that happen, not little things, but the things that happen in Ireland between the North and the South, and you know, just all these growing pains and all these big bumps and bruises that, you know, happen at the cost of human life. And I thought, I'm so afraid of that happening because we are such a young country, and we grew so big so fast. We became a country that cared about its neighbors. We became a country that would help people, that would give to other countries who were less fortunate. We would, you know, get along with other countries. We would protect them if we could without overstepping, you know, the boundaries of what NATO keeps you in and what the United Nations keeps you in, right? And the fact that people can't see what sits in one of the biggest seats in the world, it hurts a little. I don't want to call anybody out on their politics, but the fact that this man, you know, wants to attack a country that has done nothing but be our friend and our ally because he says he needs it is bullshit. Get a fucking map, dude, okay? Because Greenland and Iceland, they may be near the European continent, but I mean, Russia's like 50 miles from Alaska. They're on the other side, swinging around. I mean, you know, granted, it is a big country. And it's kind of hard to argue with the whole Venezuela thing. I'll be honest. I mean, they got rid of a bad man. But that's when they should have handed over power to the people who would create the democracy. I'll be honest, a lot of people are a little upended by I think her name is Maria Machado, giving him her Nobel Peace Prize. But honestly, she's not a dumb woman. And I personally think that she did that to stay in his favor, to be in his ear, to guide the country in the direction it needs to be. But, oh yeah, that's right. Older siblings' parents marched with Dr. King. But she said that happened at every event Dr. King appeared at. My parents got the same speech. And see, that's powerful, right? I mean, you've heard the story about older sibling running up to the fountain and using the Negro only fountain. And I hate that. It just feels, even though it's just a word, not as bad as the other one, it just still feels so derogatory. And I told, you know, just the Cliff Note version, since I've talked about the story already about when she ran up to the fountains, because she was thirsty. She's 5. She's a kid. She don't know any better. She can read, but she's, you know, she's still a kid. She didn't care. She wasn't taught to care about fountains. She wasn't taught to care about which fountain you're supposed to drink at. And I told her, I said, the fact that your mother made you apologize to an African-American woman, and you, blonde hair, blue eyes, I said, that probably meant the world to her. That is probably something she never forgot for the rest of her life. And sibling tries to one-off it like, no, it wasn't that big. It was a big deal for her. Living in the South, watching children your age treat her like she's not even a citizen, like she's just some kind of punching bag to be rude at. And we don't know her history. Maybe she was surrounded by good white people. I don't know. But the fact that that happened is something that's very memorable. because that little girl was not taught to hate. She was taught to see everybody. I mean, for fuck's sake, her babysitters were like Tony Martin and Sid Charisse and Ella Fitzgerald. I mean, come on. Who doesn't want Ella Fitzgerald as a babysitter? Because you know they're all singing to her, you know, while her parents are on stage performing. And, you know, it's not the upbringing most of us have. It is a very unique upbringing. But it goes to show you that, you know, we're all human. And I do apologize for swearing. Sorry, Dr. King. I know. Bella be like, really? But I think what we need to do is we really need to think about this speech. And we need to think hard about it. We need to really, really touch base with the meanings of it. This is a man who 62 and a half years ago had a dream that this world, after he left it, which I'm sure he thought would be longer, but maybe he didn't. Maybe he knew that every day that he stepped out that door, there was danger waiting for him. But he was somebody who had that dream. He's somebody, you know, was he a perfect man? No. No, he wasn't. He was flawed. You know, people will sit there and say, oh, well, you know, like there was a very prominent figure, a young figure who has since passed away, rest in peace. And no, I do not mean that derogatory. Did not agree with a damn thing he said, but not the way to go out. Not the way to go out. That is not the way you handle it. You do not handle things by killing people. You do not handle things by assassinating people. But he tried to rake Dr. King over the coals. And it's like sport. You will never come close to being the man that Dr. King was. Never. Ever. And that's not meant to be mean. And I'm sure there are people that follow this person and continue to follow his wife. And, you know, we'll sit there and say, you know, I'm sure a lot of you have figured out who I'm talking about, but I'm not going to mention his name on my show. But, yeah, exactly. Eileen says, Machado knows how to placate this toddler who's throwing a tantrum. She gave him what he wanted to protect her country. I agree 100%, because a lot of people are like, why is she doing that? And I'm all, she's doing it because, you know, she needs to stay in his ear, and she doesn't want him, you know, she doesn't want retribution. This man was angling for the Peace Prize, but he's attacking Minnesota. He's attacked California. He's attacked any blue state that goes against him. And no one seems to see this. Instead, they just fall into the rhetoric that, oh, they must deserve it. California is the 4th largest wealth producer, if I remember correctly, in the world. I'm pretty sure it's in the world. Even with Tesla leaving, still in the world. We could become our own country and sustain ourselves. Now, I heard Denmark has a petition going around to annex California. I heard Canada has a petition and I'm sure they're just tongue in cheek, you know, but I really think that a lot of people see our value. And yet that man, because our governor disagrees with him, you know, constantly, you know, pulls funding for things and this, that, and the other. And if you think that's okay because he's trying to get back at somebody, you are dead wrong. He is the president of the United States, and he acts like a dictator. And you can agree with me all day long. But if you stop and you look at all the evidence, you look at how he bullies people. And to be honest with you, I don't even think he's in charge. I'm not trying to do the whole conspiracy thing that they had with Biden and AutoPen, but I legit think every time they complain about Biden, they're literally revealing something about themselves. Okay, you can like Biden, you can hate him, I don't care. He doesn't care. He's probably just like, you know what, I'm over here fighting for my health. So you all can just bye. But seriously, that man up on the hill, he lies, he cheats, he grifts. I mean, anybody else gotten their golden cell phone yet? He sells Bibles that he autographed. What the hell? What the hell? And people buy this shit. Like he's the Messiah. He's not, kids. Read Revelations. He's the thing that the Bible warned you about. But people don't want to believe that. You see, there's two types of Christians. There's the Christians and the Christian nationalists. And the Christian nationalists are basically just the KKK without hoods. Okay? They're the ones who make America white again. America was never white. America started out with Native Americans. Guess what? They ain't white. Then we rounded them up, put them on little reservations. Oh, Dad and I talk about that sometimes. Like, oh yeah, they're getting their revenge now with all the casinos. It's like, yeah, let's rip off the white man. So, but we'll do it legally. Come stay at our hotel. Come, gamble. They're smart. They figured it out. America wasn't going to help them. So they figured it out themselves. And the places that have the casinos, they dole that out to other places that, other reservations that are less fortunate. They help their community. That's what this country was supposed to be about, to help our community, to grow. Every single day that I wake up, there's a new way they are finding to disregard our Constitution. That Constitution and, that Declaration of Independence were written by our founding fathers to help this country grow, because they probably saw the same thing I did. We don't want this country to go through a bazillion different wars just to figure out who they are. Yes, we had a civil war. And in my opinion, we had one of the greatest presidents ever to sit in that seat during that time. I can't even imagine. I'm surprised he didn't die of a heart attack before the end of that war. But again, someone murdered him, assassinated him, because he was basically calling out their hate. People will sit there and go, oh, well, it was a livelihood, and oh, some of the slaves were treated well. Listen, okay? I don't care if they were treated well or not. There's still the word slaves. They were still property. And they did what they had to do to survive. No one should own anybody else. I don't care what color they are. If they're a rainbow color, you do not own somebody. You do not. I'm pretty sure God would have something to say about that. And I'm pretty sure that all the people that sit there and say, well, Jesus said. It's like, no, you're sitting here saying Jesus said, but it's like, like when my friend told me about, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to share this, so I'm just going to share it and say my friend told me about how when they refused to change and they still welcomed anybody, even the gays, some people left. Tell me you have hate in your heart without telling me you have hate in your heart. Well, we're going to go find another church. What the hell? Anyways, Eileen and I talked about this yesterday. This is why I write stuff down, because I could literally talk forever. I could ramble on forever. She says they like when she's like, no, we like when you ramble. Well, I appreciate that. But yes, I literally could talk forever. And I'm just going to keep going in circles on this because I am angry. I went from being very moved by this beautiful speech, 4 pages of words. Beautiful words, words that were meant to be on a wall somewhere and say, wow, look how far we've come. Not words to remind us that 63 years later, we have not come far enough. We have not come far enough. We're letting these, Gestapo people run through our streets. ICE had a function once, and it has gotten out of control. It's gotten out of hand. When people are and now the vice president is like, yeah, we are going to start sending people door to door. I don't know if that's an idle threat or not. But that was the same man who said that Trump was a Hitler. And then, well, how much did they pay him? What did they promise him for him to change his view that drastically? Or was he just going with what everybody else said? Was he just, saying what everybody else, was saying because he needed to be liked? I don't know. There is a man who makes a lot of decisions who works for the what was Project 2025 and still is. And for those of you who don't believe that that was real, go read it, because a lot of it's transpiring now. Go take a look. People are disowning families, their own family members. And I'm going to say this on both sides. Oh yeah. The AIDS church in, I call it the Red Ribbon Church, but it's the AIDS church in LA and Hollywood. Older sibling says they had to put a ribbon on a church in Hollywood, a big ribbon, to let people with AIDS know that they were welcome there. The ribbon is still there in the church. It is in Hollywood, and it welcomes everyone. It is. It's on Hollywood, Highland, and I can't remember that street that crosses over there. Is it Fairmont? But you can't miss it. It's right behind the Highland Mall. But yeah, I thought that was beautiful. It was a church. I mean, I think it's a Christian church, but it was basically non-denominational for people who were struggling with that disease. You know, while the rest of the world was turning their backs on them, a church welcomed them in. That is what the Bible suggests we're supposed to do. You cannot take bits and pieces of the Bible and weaponize it to suit yourself. Okay, because I got news for you. For all of you who think you're just uppity, oh, well, you know, I'm a Christian nationalist and blah, blah, blah. You're going to be standing in a long line trying to get close to St. Peter while they sit there and go, please wait over there. We need to interrogate you. We need to ask you why you thought these things. And, you know, I think I'm religious adjacent. You know, there are some things I agree with. I love the new Pope. I love the last Pope. I am a lapsed Catholic. I'm more spiritual than anything. I make mistakes. Franklin, thank you. Franklin in Highland. I make mistakes. I make mistakes all the time. I am definitely a flawed person. And that used to bother me. It doesn't bother me anymore. But you know, I'm not perfect. But I will sit in this damn chair and I will tell you everything that I feel, because I'm not the only one thinking about it. Okay, I was going to show you something, but if you came on the show right at the beginning, that's what I was reaching for. I accidentally dropped it. For Christmas, my friend gave older sibling and I an emotional support dumpster fire, and it's the cutest little crochet thing, but it just says, everything's fine, I'm fine, it's all fine. You know, that saying where, and then like they have the dog and everything's on fire. It's like, it's fine, I'm fine, everything's fine. Because that's what it feels like. Oh, it does feel like a dumpster fire. So anyways, all right, I'm done. I'm off my soapbox. I apologize for getting on it. I wanted to read this to honor Dr. King, and I think I went into a completely different direction. Probably a direction that even he would say, Shelley Marie. I think that if Dr. King came to visit me right now, he would sit there and say to me, Shelley Marie, we have to love our enemy. We have to show them that there's a better way. If we hate our enemy, then we're just lowering ourselves to their level. We are just doing the same thing back. We have to love our enemy. And those are some hard words to swallow. But he's kind of not wrong. As angry as we get, as much as we hate it, we can fight. There's nothing wrong with fighting. We can protest. There's nothing wrong with protesting. It is our God-given right in this country. It is or whatever religion you follow. It is our constitutional right to do that. Searches and seizures, that's illegal in the Constitution. For everybody who might be afraid, read the Constitution, know your rights. There are places that give out cards, little red cards. Older sibling gave me some because I told her, I said, there are days when I walk out and I'm a little nervous. When I went to Arizona 2 months ago, I brought my birth certificate with me. And when I went to get my passport, they took my birth certificate for a little while, and it's like, you know, and I'm probably being a little paranoid, but the fact that this is the first time in my life that I have never felt safe in this country says a lot. Because you all know how patriotic I am. You all know how much I am a flag waver. Not that kind of flag waver. I wave my flag knowing the promises that were made by our founding fathers. I wave that flag knowing that this is supposed to be a place where people can come. You know, the sick, the poor, the tired, the huddled masses. Lady Liberty stood for something. She stood upon the shackles and the broken shackles and the broken chains. That was supposed to represent the abolishment of slavery. But even though slavery was abolished, here we are still treating the people of color like they don't matter. And I'm not saying that's everybody, but it's across the board. You know, the Asians, the Mexicans, the African Americans, the Muslims, the Indians, the Native Americans. I meant Indians, the Native Americans. If you don't fit a certain type, you don't fit in. And that's not what this country was about. Did our founding fathers own slaves? Yes, some of them did. Again, not perfect, definitely flawed. But they knew the world would change. And that's why they made the Constitution. They made the Constitution where you could amend things, but you couldn't change it. And now we have someone that, as I mentioned earlier, completely disregards everything that sacred document of this country is all about. So, this is something we have to think about, yeah? But anyways, all right. I hope everybody has a wonderful, wonderful day. I'm about to go see Eileen. So, yay. Now the song Come On Eileen is in my head. All right. So yeah, I hope everybody has a wonderful, wonderful day. I'll see you back here tomorrow, 8:30 a.m. Pacific time, Facebook Live. All lives are public under Shelley Marie Lucas. It was a bit of a heavy day today, so maybe we'll toss it up a little bit. Hey, you know what? Maybe we'll do the Oracle deck tomorrow. I don't know. Something fun, something different. Just to kind of, you know, the last couple of shows have been a bit heavy, and so we'll just toss it up a bit, lighten it up a bit, all right? Tell some jokes. I don't know. But anyways, feel free to come back. You can find me on YouTube, and basically on my social media, everything spreads out from there. I still can't upload these to Instagram, so if you are on Instagram, I should probably post something small about that. But pretty much if you're on Instagram, you probably know where to find me anyways. So, yeah. Sorry, my mind is in all directions right now. So again, have a great day, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. Older sibling buddy, Eileen, thank you for popping on. And I will see everyone tomorrow. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.